In your opinion, what makes Indonesia is still very attractive for investment compared to other peer countries, especially in Southeast Asian countries?
Yeah, well, of course I've spoken with companies, when you talk about investments, you primarily talk about private companies that do these investments. And I've spoken with quite a few Dutch companies. So what are the opportunities, what are the strengths of Indonesia, and also what are the challenges? Yeah. Well, Dutch companies really have an interest in investing here. So we are the Netherlands, private companies from the Netherlands. We are the biggest investor from Europe. So last year we invested over 1 billion euros in Indonesia, Dutch companies. And they do so because they see the opportunities that Indonesia offers. So it's a big country. It's an important country in this region. It's over 270 million people. And we really see the potential in terms of economic development, strong economic growth, sustainable, constant economic growth. And we really expect this economy to be a lot bigger in the next decades. And we want to be a part of that development. If you talk about Indonesia in terms of challenges, also compared to other countries, I think you could see that companies expect a couple of things from countries. So one of them is availability of human talent. And I think there Indonesia still has a challenge. And if you look at the education level, the number of students, of course it's increasing dramatically. But still compared to some other countries, this is a challenge for Indonesia. And another thing is what companies want, primarily maybe more than everything else, is predictability. They want to know predictability. They want to know what to expect.
So stability of governance and so on.
Yes, predictability of legislation, ease of doing business, administrative burden is an important factor. And what they've seen is that there have been some legislation that were implemented on a very short notice, and it takes companies time to adjust. And also what we've seen that some legislation had, let's say, a kind of a protectionist effect. So in terms of import restrictions, in terms of local content requirements. And these are sometimes challenging for private enterprises, and especially when this legislation changes frequently over time. So I think Indonesia still has a challenge. On the positive side, companies also mentioned that they find a very open door talking to governments here. They experience that the government is really there trying to help them, and I think that's important, and I think that really helps also
the
development of the economy.
communications to Indonesian government are very, very well open.
Yeah, that was the impression I got. Yeah.
Okay, so that was your notes on doing business in Indonesia, but you said earlier that you have visited some of the Dutch companies in the harbor and doing businesses in Indonesia. So how was your conversation with them? So what are the what are the high and lows of doing business in Indonesia for the Dutch companies that you met earlier?
Well, the companies there were very, very positive and satisfied. And the interesting thing is, what I found a nice anecdote. So I spoke with people from Van Oort, and that is a big dredging company, and they do projects all over the world. And I said, well, have you learned something here? Have you done something differently?
How long have they been doing business in Indonesia?
I don't know. So this project is quite for some time, but they have done many. They have done more projects in Indonesia than just this project in the harbor. But they told me that they used bamboo to stabilize the surface in this port project. And they have done that never before anywhere else in the world. So they had to contact their head office. So they said, well, we're trying to use bamboo here. We think it's going to work. Is that okay? Well, the head office, of course, had its doubts because we never use bamboo in Europe.
Some local wisdom.
Yeah, but it worked perfectly fine. So it was an interesting lesson for this company. So that's the kind of ingenuity that you find in Indonesia. So you plan something, and then it goes a little bit different, but it works. And that's I found that a very positive and inspiring example of how it is to work in Indonesia.
Well, you have mentioned to us about the potential, the challenge, and also the opportunities that Indonesia has to be even bigger economies. And talking about the effort to increase the Indonesian and Dutch trade and business between the two countries, what potential continues to be developed?
Yeah. Well, if you talk about trade and talk about investment, so it's primarily, of course, private enterprises that do that. And we as government try to create a framework, try to set the standards that support companies to do trade and to invest in Indonesia, or Indonesian companies to invest in the Netherlands or to trade towards the Netherlands. But of course, we as governments can work closely together to create an environment where it's easy to do business. So we have, so for example, we can organize trade missions. We can organize networking events. We can organize and fund projects to jointly do research or to do development together, to fund feasibility studies. We set up exchanges between universities, for example, and students and talent. So there are all things that we can do as governments to support trade and to support investments, provide information to companies who are interested in investing in Indonesia. They can get in touch with our embassy here, and the embassy can always provide them the information to need to do business in Indonesia.
Thank you so much for that commitment. And what are the targets of economic relations between Indonesia and the Netherlands, especially for this year, sir?
I don't think we have a specific target. Developments have been quite positive recently. So if you compare trade within Indonesia, now overall trade flows are now around 7 billion euros a year. And if you compare that, for example, to pre-COVID figures, then the increase was around 50%. So there's quite a substantive growth, and we hope to continue this path for the near future.
Hopefully, looking forward to even stronger relation between Indonesia and the Netherlands. I need to ask you about this very current issue about the European Union deforestation regulations. So currently, Indonesia has asked the support from the Netherlands as one of the largest trading partners in Europe, so that the European Union does not implement the regulation that could impact the many lives of Indonesian farmers, millions of Indonesian farmers. So the background is the trade between Indonesia and the European Union has enormous potential, but all of it could be hampered if the implementations of anti-deforestation regulations or the EUDR will be implemented. So I need your views on this.
Yeah. So this is specifically, of course, about palm oil, which is a part of our trade, but not all our trade.
Yes, sir.
And this is European legislation. And to be honest, we are in support of this legislation, or at least of the goal of this legislation. So we also, from the Dutch government, support the view that we should try to prevent deforestation where we can. But the goal of this regulation is to prevent deforestation. The goal is not to prevent trade or to restrict trade or to drive smallholders out of business. So what we try to do is, first of all, listen carefully to the Indonesian government about problems that they see in the implementation of this regulation. So we have a constant dialogue with the Indonesian government. And we also kind of serve as an intermediary between the European Union and the Indonesian government to see what problems come up during the implementation phase of this regulation. So for example, we do test runs with this regulation to see what problems come up and see whether we can improve that. But also we funded projects to support especially smallholders to adapt to this regulation and to do farming in a sustainable way so that they still can make a living in a sustainable way and still do the trading with the European Union.
The goal is anti-deforestation.
The goal is anti-deforestation, and we want to support farmers to make that change, to make that transition, and still earn a living.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. And lastly, for our discussions for this time, sir, we just finished the elections.
Yes.
Indonesia, which just finished the election. It's probably the biggest elections so far in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, with 240 million people involved in this election. We have selected a new president, which is Mr. Prabowo Subianto. He will be elected. He will be appointed as president in October 2024. So, under his presidency and under the governments, the new governments of Indonesia, what is your hope for this relation between Indonesia and the Netherlands? We know we have been through a lot of histories for hundreds of years, and how do you see the relation between Indonesia and the Netherlands for the future, sir?
Well, I'm optimistic, and yes, also in the Netherlands we've had elections, so we're also expecting a new government to come into office. But if you look at the underlying fundamentals, I think both our countries see the importance of doing business together. I think both our countries see the importance of having a partner across the globe. Yeah. For us, Indonesia is a major country in this region. We have very long ties with Indonesia, and we really want to uphold those ties and foster those ties. And I think that won't change with a new government. But also the other way, I mean, the Netherlands is an important gateway to Europe for Indonesian companies. We have a strong presence of people with Indonesian background in the Netherlands. So these strong ties are there, and those won't change. Whatever the government policies will be. So I really am convinced that this good relation will remain and will foster also economic growth in the near future.
And hopefully it will get even better in the new presidents and in the governments.
That's at least what we strive for.
Yeah, both Indonesia and Netherlands. Thank you so much for your time here in CNBC Indonesia, Mr. Michiel. A pleasure to have you in CNBC Indonesia. Welcome. Have a great day and have a great time in Nusantara tomorrow.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you.
Dan demikianlah interview kita bersama dengan Mr. Michiel Sweers dari Kementerian Luar Negeri Belanda, CNBC Indonesia Beyond Business.